Okay, yes, this is not professional. I am not a YouTuber, at least not by trade. Um, so sorry about the quality. I'm hoping the quantity of these videos will reign supreme, or at least to be helpful. Once again, just kind of preface this if you didn't watch the first two, which were kind of long. This is going to be briefer, much briefer. And after this video, I'm going to make one that puts all of this stuff together. Right now, we were focusing on sort of formatting and functionality of basic things within Excel to make the Excel more useful and a lot more pretty. Uh, that's important, I think, because if you can't read what you're doing, if you don't know what you're looking at, or if you have to look over a scattered spreadsheet, it can be tricky and it can be confusing. It can be aggravating. So we've talked about how to make these check boxes work. I could work on these check boxes, but it's just simple. It's a simple script. It's not that big of a deal. And what I want to focus on now is button functionality. So once again, refresher, form controls and ActiveX controls offer different types of form type fields. These are forms, you think about like a web form, you've got drop downs, you've got combo boxes, things like this. And the functionality of this is useful, but the problems that you run into from time to time with things like this are not only formatting issues, but also you have to program them all to do certain things. And that's fine. I enjoy doing that. But what I end up running into is they don't fit into the overall formatting of your Excel sheet. And so they become a bit cumbersome to fix. And in some cases, if you're trying to, put things in the same space to sort of swap one out for another, and I can think of a case, and I was explaining this in another video. I have a case where that happens, and then you have to move all of these and put them right back in the same spot after you edit them. So it's just easier to kind of limit the amount of ActiveX and form controls that you use when you're doing things like this in Excel. And make no mistake, I haven't got into any of the data features that this thing offers, which is really, you'll find a ton of tutorials out there on how to deal with data. The next tutorial, I am going to put a bit of data in here, and what we're going to do is just kind of do an estimating program for a painting business. So I'm going to do a little bit of research into what a painter might do to estimate their job. And then I'm going to build this and use these forms and this formatting to create something wherein I can enter some data as if I went to a person's house, made my measurements, assess the situation, determine which paint was going to be used, how much, what colors, etc. And then by that determine how much time that's going to take and labor costs, figure out what the cost of the whole job will be, and then add in whatever profit margin I want, etc., so that I can spit out something to a customer that looks really good. And that is one of the features that Excel does well is its calculations, right? So you can take a table of data, and from that, with index and match and VLOOKUPs and things of that nature, you can generate pretty much any kind of data view that you want. Like recently, I was on Upwork trying to find a job on Upwork to do, and one of the jobs I wanted to do was have a whole list of vendors that had a product, and to create a formula or some sort of script that would pull the lowest price for that particular product along with the vendor that sells it and their vendor ID and so on. Uh, that platform kind of sucks, and I don't mean to sound disparaging, but I I just took a few minutes to create a formula for them that would work using some fictional data, gave them a work sample, and I never even heard back from them, even though the thing did exactly what they require. So, yeah, hopefully if you're taking this tutorial, you're not trying to find a job but already have one and need a little bit more experience on how to make things a little more usable or user friendly. So anyway, on to what we're going to do. I'm going to make this button work like a button. So last tutorial, I showed you how to create these check marks that act like radio buttons. by using a on selection change, the named range of it, etc. So starting with the named range portion, I've already named this button calculate. If I wanted to, I could essentially just format some other cells over here. Actually, my favorite thing to do is to take this painter, double click it, and then, well, in this case, single click, but placing it in there should create the exact same formatting of this button, as you can see. And now I just have to go in here and put words in there. Cool. All right, so here is my naming convention, camel case, BTN for the first three, and then a meaningful name after, just like I did here. Button calculate, so this one it's probably going to calculate something, and this one is going to reset everything. So one of the things that I love named ranges for is that you can use so many different named ranges for so many reasons. So if you wanted to, you could come in here and select, let me go into design mode over here first. Whenever you're working with things that are on selection change, they're going to always fire if you're not in design mode. And that can be annoying. So make sure you go into design mode if you're ever going to change these things. But I'm going to create a reset button here. And it's going to be real simple. This shouldn't be too surprising or even too overly complicated. So now I've selected all of the inputs where a user could put data in there or affect the data within those columns. And I'm just going to call this my, how about form inputs? No, you know what? I'm just going to call it inputs. I don't need a special name for this one. Just going to call it inputs. So if I highlight these, then I should see that the name on them is inputs. I don't see that, so let's try again. Inputs. Oh, I see what happened. Okay, so just make sure that it's in there. As long as it's in there, we're good. I've got merged cells in there, so sometimes that makes it kind of act strange, but it looks like they're all in there. All right, so back to the coding. So what I want to do is I want to be able to hit this button and all of these fields reset to blank. This will be very, very simple, actually. So we'll go into the Visual Basic. Remember, it's button reset. So I want to have effectively, I want to have the buttons respond a certain way if when you click on the cell, the first three letters are button, right? So I've already got an on selection change that sends us to check radio, to call check radio button, right? So that is what happens first, is it'll call this if something changes. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create a variable. I'm going to call this, how about clicked range equals active cell. No, you know what? We'll call it cell name. I'm inside of a function, and we're going to do this as string, and we're going to set cell name equal to active cell dot name. Just because, here, let me go back up here. Because we are using that name.name, we still want to put this on error resume next thing. Anytime we're going to do that sort of thing, we want to do that. Okay. All right, so all I want to do with this is I want to test the value of cell name. So if it is button, then, and I want to make sure that cell name, that I'm grabbing that right cell name, just the, oops, excuse me, left, we're taking it from the left, just those three characters. So again, if you hadn't watched any of these, this particular piece of code is saying, give me the first three characters of this cell name that I've got. So this will grab the name range of that cell that you clicked on. All right, and if it's a button, then I want to send it to a button handler function, or if it's a radio button that has a different uh, three letters, I want to send it to this other function. So if my cell name comes back after I process it as button, I want to call, let's just call it button handler. I'm just going to call it that for now. Button handler. Actually, I don't need that there. And then if I can go else if, one word, else if, and then left cell name. In this case, I want it to go 6. I don't need, I keep thinking, oh, it's parentheses. If left cell name 6 is equal to button opt, not button, it was check opt, right? That's what I said before. Then I wanted to call, then, that's not a typical programming convention. Usually it's a bracket. Then I want to call this check radio. So that's the one that will call the check radio buttons. And then else if, I guess. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I was going to go ahead and take care of the ones that are just check in the first three, but I'm not going to do that yet. So this will differentiate between whether or not I clicked on a button cell or I've clicked on a check opt cell, and then it will send it to that particular code. So this should still work, because if the button that I did click was a check opt, the active cell will be that check off, and so on and so forth already. And there is no, you're not selecting anything or doing anything, so this should automatically run through. But what we should do with this button handler then is to create some sort of decision. So we're going to go button, what I call it, button handler. And within the sub, really all I want to do is I want to go if active cell equals, and I actually want to do, I want to grab the first three letters. If active cell, you can see that it wants me to capitalize left, but it will do that for me after I do this correctly. Okay, so I'm looking for the first three letters. If they are button, I shouldn't have to do this now that I think about it, because it's already running this function. So what I want to do is I want to grab, I'll just do it like this. If on error resume next, of course, because we're going to grab the cell name. On error resume next. And then we're going to say if active cell dot name equals button reset. So I'm going to set up something that works when button reset is clicked. Then I should be able to go range, and this is where we put input. Inputs is what I called it. Dot value should equal that. And that should be enough to essentially reset all of the values and inputs. If not, it's because my named range didn't work correctly. But there you go. So now everything is reset. So after I've completed this form and I don't want anything in there, okay, your favorite color is red, your name is Johann Bach, I don't care about your middle name in this case, you live at 121 Orchestra Ave in, I don't know, Michigan, I suppose, where the zip code is probably not even close to this, but whatever, 6215. There we go. Comments, I am a composer, but I quit. So does that make me a decomposer? Okay. Dumb, I know. I don't care. I could put something in here. All of these inputs, though, and I'm going to test it by putting values in all of them. So I hit reset, all of these values should get reset to 0. The only thing left I want to do, anytime I do something like that with a button type of call, I want to reset that cursor to the very first cell, A1, because if you don't, it sits right there. Like I discussed this in one of the videos, you'll notice that after you click these check boxes, the cursor can be found at A1. The purpose behind that being, as soon as you check that box, you can check back in it. If you don't, then the button doesn't, it'll still work as a button, but it doesn't allow you to go up to other cells. It doesn't allow you to click on that button twice, which, I mean, you didn't necessarily need to do that, but in cases like this, you might. So I just like to reset that all the way up to A1. So as soon as that's over, I like to set the actually, excuse me, sorry. It's range.A1 dot select. If I was really concerned about it, because I have that in a variety of things, I would create a subroutine that just does that and then call it every time I needed it. But it's a short piece of code, so I don't really care that much. But it's several times through here, and not repeating yourself means you should make a separate function for that. I'm not going to worry about it. But now when you click on that, it'll go back up to A1 so that you can just keep hitting reset for no reason. But that's how you make a button work, is you just kind of want to use the on change event, and then you want to test the name of the button, and the name of the button will then depend on, or the code that runs will depend on the name that you give the button. And so now that we have some basic functionality in there, we can start to put some data in here, and we can start to use this. When I do the next video, I'm going to change these inputs to be something more meaningful to my estimating program. But we're going to use, like a table of data, of actual data like Excel is used for. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a situation where you can enter customer's name, probably address, any comments to the job, like, oh, customer has a statue that's 2 feet from the building that's going to be hard to work around. Oh, look, I'm getting a phone call. I'll get to that later. So these are, you can do whatever you want. I mean, it's your program, right? So if you don't care, but you have comments like this, add another $10 for labor because we're going to have to do something special for this thing that's happening in their yard that's specific to this one customer. Maybe their back wall is like 100 feet off the ground because they live near a cliff, and anything you want to put there, that sort of thing. Favorite color may not be the favorite color, but you could potentially select a variety of colors. So we're going to figure out like some basic things that would be required for an estimation program, and then we'll use that to kind of filter the data and make calculations based on that. And so what we'll think about is kind of like how many gallons a house how many square feet does a gallon cover on a house, and then how many square feet do you measure, and then of course you're going to need formulas to think about. If you run into a situation where you might need 1.3 gallons, obviously you can't buy 3 gallons, so you're going to want to buy another gallon. So 1.3 is actually 2 in that situation. So you want to think about little aspects of that part of your problem that you're trying to solve, and your formulas are going to be generated. I think I want to do a quote engine that will deliver 2 different quotes, one with a high quality paint and one with a medium quality. I might even think about doing like a third low quality to show you how easy it is to swap out between 3 different types of quotes in those scenarios. So I'll think about that a little bit. Might be a couple days, but now you know how to make buttons. With the button calculate thing, you could potentially just grab values from 2 cells that you want to calculate, or you may use calculate as a way to like calculate how many gallons of paint you have, to say, all right, calculate 375 square feet needs how many gallons. Oh, 3.4 gallons. So then it might show the number 4 when you hit that button. But whatever you want to do, the basic principle has already been established, so you know how to figure out the best way. And the beauty is obviously, that the button itself, it doesn't, it's not every button that clears all your data. It's just the reset button. So because of the naming convention that we used and so on, now you've got function. Wow, that's a button functionality, button functionality without having to use these weird controls over here and set all kinds of properties and parameters and have to try to keep track of those as well. So this is right here, right there, easy to use. And there you go. So there's my button tutorial. We will then come back the next time with the tutorial regarding putting paint on somebody's house and how much that might cost. So thank you for watching. I know my other two videos were longer. I wanted to make this one a little bit shorter to make it a little bit more tantalizing, I suppose. It is going to be kind of a stream of consciousness because I can be verbose, but I also don't like to leave people hanging with, you know, questions that should be easily answered in this video or any video because I find tutorials are sort of like, well, here, log this to the console, but you never know how to use the data that they're using except for to log to the console. How do you put that into the actual fields that it needs to go in, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to make sure that I'm at least clear enough that you can think for yourself later, but also some of the things that you need to know, whether or not uh, it's useful or whatever, it's there. So it's kind of stream conscious. I might throw in a dad joke. But other than that, like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Or you'll see me. I won't see you. Actually, you won't see me either because, I'm not camera ready. But that's cool. That's why YouTube was invented, right? Okay, see you next time.